Yo guys, Taneda here. Today I'm gonna try and explain how to make ambient. Big disclaimer, I'm not a super duper pro guy, but I will try to explain things that work at least for me and the way I approach things with ambient. I've never done this before, but I sat and started categorizing what kind of ambient sounds or what kind of ambient music I like to listen to. And each of those types is roughly categorized in different approaches to how you structure the track, how you use your sound selection, how you basically go about sound design. And roughly speaking, I came to a conclusion that there are like 5 main methods that I have found that could yield the result close to ambient. Method 1, you get one long note, basically a drone, usually a low note, and you start putting stuff on top of it. Gradually, not always in one go, with some, I don't know, methodical thought put into it, and to not overwhelm, but to keep things relatively interesting and engaging in terms of how you will listen to that track later on. Method 2, arpeggios. I love melodies, I love arpeggios, I love how different things clash together. Arpeggios are especially valuable when you're trying to make some sort of space synth or retro electronica kind of sound. I I have a lot of influence from the older electronica from 80s, 90s, so probably that's why I'm using it quite a lot. Methods 3 is about field recordings. Basically, you go out in the wild, you take your phone. If you have a dedicated recorder, you take that. Could be Tascam, Zoom, whatever. I'm using Zoom H2n. It's a relatively old one. Still does a good job. Sometimes when I'm not having it anywhere near me, I'm just using phone, or I have an MP3 player, like the old one, kind of Walkman style, that also has a recorder. So sometimes I just record using that one. But yeah, if I find a moment with a lot of sounds that I personally like and I think that would be a good kind of sound bed for a track, I just hit record button and there you go. Later on, I sort them out, and like there's a lot of stuff involved in post processing and whatnot, but I'll talk about it later. Method 4, textural approach and noise. This involves slower but gradual changes over time in between different parts of the track. What I mean by that, the main sound which the track will be revolving around is some kind of noise. It could be natural noise, it could be generated noise, but interaction between parts of the track, which would be different noises, is what makes the structure interesting and feel like it's evolving. So let's say you can take one sound, one noise, one, I don't know, it could be something mechanical. It could be yet another field recording, but more of a, not nature, but rather something more, I don't know, electric hum, stuff like that. You then either slowly layer it with a different kind of noise, could be high pass white noise, could be some sort of lush reverb tail, or could be anything like. Uh, yeah, and you slowly progress towards the either increasing the energy and tension and then releasing it, or towards just slowly changing and having slight accents here and there, slight emphasis here and there to make it more interesting and engaging. And the final method that I've thought about is silence being the main center point, but not just the track being silent. Uh, Rather, you would compose the track and its structure to emphasize silence. So, like, note with a longer or more. What a. I'm lacking words at the moment. But basically, more interesting silence, if I may say so. When the note hits, there might be a reverb that goes into a very, very quiet tone, or like it doesn't have to be a room tone, it could be just emptiness, anything. And then slow and gradual uh, introduction of another kind of note or sound, or maybe even make the empty spaces between the notes into a sort of slow rhythm that would evolve over time. So yeah, that kind of approach. And I'm gonna try my best and explain each of these methods in detail. Yeah, so let's try to do that. So we're here in my demo project. This is like corresponds to method 1. I've so far made method 1, method 2. Probably will make the rest of them in the coming days. This is the one thing, one note kind of, and stuff on top of it. What I usually do, I make the note low, kind of like this. I love JP6K. It's got some really good sounds. This is a super saw kind of Jupiter kind of synth. And this low note is kind of cool. It's a preset that I like, but you can do something similar quickly. Just do, yeah, let me, I'm talking. I should show stuff. Let's go with Serum. Let's do something very similar quickly. We have one saw, we have second saw. I'll create a different pattern, no matter how I'm gonna call it now. I'm gonna copy this over. The pattern did not create. Yeah, whatever. Now we have the pattern, now we have the sound. Doesn't sound very drony. It's because the octave is higher. Now, closer, not there. I would say -2 in this case. I'm decreasing the octave just because the lower notes tend to provide more energy to support the rest of the track. This is sort of a bass kind of basis for the track in that case. And I will put the filter and filter out the higher frequencies. Probably it's gonna be even low 18. Okay, what about this? Aha, yeah, we forgot about detune. What we want to do is slightly detune the thing. And then it will introduce the change over time. You can actually increase the voices here, 2 and 3. That's going to make it more lush. There is a global setting as well for make it a super saw, which I'm going to do now. I think we just need more voices at this point. Let's go for 7. And here 7 as well. Yup. What about this one? Almost 1-to-1. There is one thing that we lack at this point. Which is reverb, of course. If we make ambient, we don't have to be as precise with the subs and basses as in ordinary, I don't know, EDM, bass music, whatever. So yeah, I'm just using reverb and abusing it. This is Serum, this is what we made. We put more reverb, like maybe like this. I have a Send EOS reverb. I like it. You don't have to use EOS. There is a, yeah, let's disable this one. I'll show the other one that is free and that I'm using quite often as well. It is called Valhalla Su, if I spell it correctly. Valhalla Supermassive. Yeah, there is a Reverb's large Hydra harp. It's the name of the preset, which I'm very much using. I like to increase the low filter to like 200, 300 hertz, just to put through the very bottom end of it unaffected and to clean the sound up. But basically it gives pretty good results. Awesome, right? We have it. I'm getting rid of it for now. I've showed you other thing how to do that. Getting back to JP6K. What I've prepared here as well, you can see this automation. I very much like the cutoff. I like it a lot. It's one of the secret weapons when you're trying to make sci-fi or I don't know futuristic ambience or whatever. Super saws and filters and reverb. It's like look what we have. And we get that awesome noisy tail. We have this emphasis on all the resonances, on the way the filter opens. And it's like it's just like I don't know. I'm in love with this kind of sound. I use it too many. I've been using it like way too often. I admit it, but I like it. I just like how that sounds, and I like to layer it with other stuff. Okay, sure. We have this point. We have this part. What's next? The idea of the method one is that we will add more stuff on top of it. I've prepared some other things. We'll get to that later. Let's go and look for some sort of samples. Okay, those are rhythmic samples. We could use rhythmic samples. I don't care. Let's go with a hi-hat. Collab hi-hat. Okay, basic hi-hat. Quite loud, but fine. What I'm gonna do with this one, this is a pretty high content, high in terms of frequency. What I usually do when dark ambient is the main thing I'm trying to make, I stretch things. And by stretching things, I'm just naturally low passing them. The default algorithm in the FL Studio to stretch is basically to slow the audio rate of the things. So you get the sounds as if they were slowed down during the playback. So all the frequencies that were high get lower. So therefore, it doesn't feel as harsh, doesn't feel as, I don't know, oppressing. Let's give it a new mixer track. We've stretched it. Sounds like a hit. Not a very good hit, but still we're gonna work with that. Let's reverse it. And let's give it some, you guessed it, reverb. Reverb is the name of the game. When something doesn't feel or sound as good, try a reverb on it. Usually it gets better. Voila! That's probably a little too loud. And we could kind of layer it with the part where we increase the filter and decrease it a bit. Yeah, I'm trying to synchronize the most impacting parts, the parts that have the most amplitude, the most loudness, together so that they create naturally some sort of a tension point. Tension and release is something I will be talking about over and over again because this is basically the way I like to make music. I like to have music changes in the energy. What I mean by that, there will be like low energy, slower, calmer parts, and then there will be the builds up, whatever. You get the point. And then there will be the release of that energy, which is like, well, kind of what we hear here. And then it slowly kind of dissipates, which is another good way to put it. Other stuff that we can put here is quite a bit. Let's pick some sort of sample pack. I'm not a big fan of sample packs. I like to make my own samples, but I'm not going to go into a resampling session right now. resampling session is basically when you have some sound generators, you put a whole lot of effects on top of that, and you change a bunch of parameters, or usually I love to use randomizers or the effects that have randomization button. And while I'm doing it, I'm always constantly recording for the longer period. And then in like 5 to 10 minutes of recording, there will be some parts, some pieces that I personally like the most. I just cut them out and I get them on top of the one long note that I have here. Just as an example, I'm not gonna pick the samples from the sample pack. I have here somewhere, which one was mine? Glitch sessions, yeah. I have some bass sausages. Not gonna use bass. Cecilia. This is usually the way the resampled sounds are like for me. After a bunch of, yeah, different effects, I'll pick this one. It sounds to me like chattering, like someone's talking. You could use that, possibly stretch as well. I'm gonna cut out this part. I'm gonna stretch it. And I'm gonna get some sort of a delay and reverb possibly as well on top of it. So delay. Let's give it this one. It's pretty good. And let me find some preset that I know. I think it's this guy. And reverb is the usual stuff. We're sending it to the reverb send channel. I think it's pretty dope. If we pair it, let's say, oh, another thing I like as a random sounds, radio noises. I got those somewhere here. Yeah, radio. Okay, let's get this one. And again, we're picking some small part like this. Maybe, I don't know. Let's go with this later one. There are some interesting noises in the end that I can see. Again, I usually stretch that kind of stuff, but I make it way, way less prominent in the mix. It's just something that gives you the textural feel. It doesn't have to be the main center point. And probably, again, a little bit of reverb. Just to glue things. Reverb in ambient glues stuff together really well. So again, reverb, contrast, tension, release, and apply it to each of the methods and you're good to go. Okay, this is a little bit too spicy. I want something with more in-between space kind of thing. So this is good, but a bit too loud as well. Kind of, let's try -25 and go with that. Like so. Oh, and usually on some impacts or hits, I stop the, what do you call it? The textural parts. Because that gives the more energy change in the overall sound. And I want some sort of a impact here, just because it works better and translates better to the understanding of the listener. And for impacts, I have simply put some recorded kick drums that I have put through another reverb. You have them somewhere here. Risers, yeah, impacts. Already sounds perfect to me. I'll just low pass it. But I don't want to use an external filter. I think this cutoff is good enough. Yeah, that should work. And then we have this long note continue a bit. We might introduce some sort of a melody, or let's say after this part, we change the actual main low note here. I have two other examples. Okay, let's see how they play together. But this is the same note, just a different synthesizer. In this case, it's like Lush 2. Great synthesizer. Check it out. If it's on sale, go grab it. If it's not on sale, well, wait until it's on sale. It has an immense amount of presets, immense amount of layers you can readily use. And yeah, this is one of those things that I like to pick when I just have no clue what kind of sound I want, and I just click through all of them and find the one the most suitable. And this is the... Oh, this is the another analog emulation. This is a freebie. If I haven't linked it in the description, I will. It's from Full Bucket Music, Full Bucket Production, Full Bucket guy. He makes some really sick free plugins, especially synthesizers. So you should check him out as well. So yeah, this is how it sounds all together. So you get the idea. This is method one. We've got already kind of like a minute of music ready. And it didn't take a whole lot of effort. We just had to systematically approach what we are doing and kind of put a bit of thought into how things evolve together. Ta-da! That's one way. So then we have method number 2, which is about arpeggios. It is kind of simple in a sense that you basically try to stack arpeggios that harmonize well together from different sounds, make them evolve into one another, and so on and so forth. Just basically experiment with them. But it is kind of hard if you're like not very very much into the melodies. Sometimes it might be tough to kind of click the arpeggios into the exact sounds and note progressions that you want. There are options for that, let's call it that way. Arpeggios come in two types, at least the ones that I usually use. Probably there are more, but we're talking about those that I usually use. This one, for instance, we have some sort of a arpeggio made in the synth itself. Changes slightly, but if we play the notes together, we get something more interesting. and so on. It's kind of cool, and you can go like pretty long distance with this sort of approach. What I would add, and I'll probably try to add it in a moment, is some sort of a lower layer again. We're coming back to the bass or sub being the basis of the track. It is needed here, in my opinion, because it will alleviate the kind of lighter and sparklier high end of the arpeggios. How to stack them together? This is a different kind of arpeggio. It is not an arpeggio at all, it's just a sound. Something like that. And I've made it into an arpeggio by clicking things in. This is a simpler one. I like triplet arpeggios for whatever reason, and let's just hear how they both sound together. Yep, this is kind of cool. I already can hear a few things that I would change. I didn't try to mix them very well together. This guy is very in the high end. This guy has more of a low end. Let's check this out real quick. I like to have my arpeggios at the very least in the mid to high spectral region. So as you can see, we're getting here into the lows. I just want to, drop the low shelf down to make it emphasize a little more in the high end, like this. But not overly, because it's still going to be stingy, and we have already quite a bit of energy in the first arpeggio. So how do they sound together now? In my opinion, they sound awesome. I don't even want to put the reverb. I think this guy already has a bit of reverb and delay. This one possibly, yeah, a bit of effects. What's in effects? Yeah, I think a delay at least. It's cool. It's cool the way it is. I'll just drop the sub for it. And my sub again is gonna be JP6K because it's kinda easy peasy lemon squeezy. We just need to find the right note. I think it should be this one. One and a half. Let's see if it works. Okay, I can hear something I'd like to. Because like arpeggios are cool when they evolve as a chord progression. In this case, we have a chord, but also if we have the root note stable, it becomes boring quite fast, especially in the more complex melodic parts. And arpeggios are kind of complex because they have a lot of interaction together. And look, if for the first method we have one stable note and changing stuff around it, here it's kind of the other way around. We are changing low note, the root note, together with the progression of the arpeggio to make it feel more cohesive. I think I feel like that's gonna be the next note. Let's see, I'm not sure. Yes. Yeah, that's actually gonna sound pretty good. Where should it end? It's a little bit too far. I think it's gonna be like this. Maybe not. Nope. A little bit too far still. Then it should be like this. Nope. I'm trying to figure things out because it's not on the grid, or not exactly on the grid. A little bit further. Yeah, that's where we at. Good. And then again, boom. Yeah, one other thing that I haven't mentioned yet probably is vocalizing, especially when you're working with melodies rather than with textures or noises. Sometimes it helps to sing the note along, because when you're singing, you can hear the pitch. And sometimes your ear gets the proper pitch much faster than your like analytical mind does. That's the case for me at least. And whenever I'm humming something that kind of fits into the progression of the notes, it's easier for my ear to capture it and remember it. And so it's easier to find the specific note, the specific tone later on. Yeah, and this is how we get at this sort of progression. We can add more arpeggios, we can change the sub note, we can do all sorts of things, but the basics remains the same. We focus on arpeggios, we focus on melodies. We also could add some pads to implement additional harmonies or make it feel that the melody develops still continuously by adding more melodic things. But have in mind, it's a trap that I'm often getting myself into. There's a point when there is just too much melodies, and you don't always realize when you hit that point. It takes some time to, reset your brain to actually understand that, nope, dude, that's already too much. You have to either settle on what you already have there, or even start cutting out the unnecessary stuff, unnecessary bits that don't add any value. There are tracks that are too busy, in my opinion, especially with ambient, where you have to have a bit of scarcity and a bit of contrast, because like ambient is the atmosphere, ambient is the feeling that you get when you, I don't know, feel something, when you are in the certain setup situation, etc. And like when things get way too busy, it kind of breaks the immersion and it breaks that feeling. So you have to be careful about that. That is one thing to note. I forgot to add to the previous method. There is a neat tool that can help you when you're in piano roll and you press Alt P. You get this little chord progression generator, chord progression tool. And yeah, you can fairly easy find some cool things, especially with the arpeggios that just work with constant notes like the first one. We can stop and regenerate the whole progression. There are lots of parameters you can adjust. Yeah, go play with it. It's quite easy to get something going, so yeah. Method number 3. What was it? I think it was about the field recordings and samples. I've got a bunch of them. Some are louder than the others. This is one of the first things that I usually do. I try to not really normalize, but increase the loudness of these to the properly audible levels. Because there's a lot of variation in between them. And I'm not really sure which is which. I've just put the first ones I could find to be more or less interesting here. These are quite loud already. Let's increase this one and see. Generally, I try to start with some sort of a noisy textural thing. So let's find this. Sounds pretty noisy to me. I would go even so far as try to low pass it and find a stable pitch, because yeah, I'll just cut out the part that I think loops the best. There is some sort of engine or something like that, and there's also, I think it's either rain or something similar, because there's a lot of noise coming out of this recording. So let's go with low passing here, this one. Can give it even more. Sounds good to me. Probably somewhere from here. Nope. Actually, this part. And up to here, I think it's gonna look pretty decent. So this would serve as a basis for the track in this case. I usually like to have a bunch of samples grouped together somewhere in either in the beginning of the playlist or somewhere later on, but actually start composing and arranging things together somewhere later. So this is more like a playground where I tweak the sounds themselves. And here would be where I actually try to layer things together. And I'm just gonna, select this guy, copy paste it a bunch of times, see if it loops well. Okay, there's an audible dip in the loudness. This is fine. This is already kind of decent. We just need to give it some reverb. So we're routing to a new mixer track, increasing the reverb. Send to the reverb. Here we have our Valhalla Supermassive. And also what I like to do is, in case of field recordings or different other samples, recorded or not, I like to make lows mono. I mean, it's ambient, you don't have to do that, but for whatever reason, I feel like mono subs, mono low end, even if it's later on put through reverb, retains more energy. So that is just my own opinion, just my own approach to that. I like to use Baselane. It's a free tool. I will also link it in the description. Yeah, basically what we do is we have this 200 something, 200-ish hertz filter. Everything that is below that filter will have its width narrowed to mono, summed to mono. We're still dipping. Can make this guy shorter, or actually, you know what? I can cross fade them. That would be a better approach in my opinion. We'll take a bit of... Yeah, that sounds much better. It doesn't have to be perfect crossfade, just, you know, decent enough so that we don't feel like it's losing too much energy when the dip happens. Kind of like that. Okay, we're losing a little bit here. So moving it a bit further. Yeah, basically you adjust things the way that you would want them to sound. It's like pretty simple. You do everything the way you want it to be. Some mechanical stuff. There's a lot of high-end in there. I might want to cut out the small bit. I want to stretch this guy. Like so. Ah, and the original sample gets stretched. Fine. We will move it somewhere there. It is alright. As long as we use this, fine. Should be good. Actually, you know what? It's pretty dope. I want some delay on that. Reverb and delay, the usual things that I use. It's either to mask sometimes the imperfections of the sound itself. Like here we have this dip. I've crossfaded it, but without the reverb, it would still sound a little bit unnatural. Reverb just, you know, smoothes it out. And in this case, I want delay so that every amplitude change is slightly more pronounced. So you have some sort of a feel for the groove, rhythm, whatever. It's not really a groove, but you'll get the idea in a moment. I'll use Fruity Delay 3. I like it. Gonna make it slower. I'm gonna make it ping pong. Like this, slower. And it should be pretty decent already, I think. Some sort of heavy industrial atmosphere is already happening. Nope, I'm not gonna... I will just cut out this small bit. It has that... Okay, a little bit of... Yeah, I'll go as far as take it here and use this part then. And I'll kind of crossfade it into itself again. And probably I will use some more bits from here. This sounds pretty dope. And this could be a nice build-up. Yeah, when using samples like that, I don't know, me. I try to build up into each of the more transient parts. So in this case, we have this. It's not an impact. It's sort of a amplitude change. And I want to lead it with the gradual fade in of this sample. Then after a while, I want to find another sort of hard-hitting sample. This one's pretty heavy and pretty loud. Maybe not the best one. Maybe something from here. Mm-hmm. But I want to stretch it a bit. Like that, but rather like that. And so finding some balance, finding some rhythm, finding some sort of a groove, if I may say so. It's gonna have some points of interest. Usually the amplitude changes are what makes it not that drony and makes the attention of listener to latch onto it. And we are playing with those and trying to make them kind of like talk to each other or develop into one another. That is the main goal of the whole composition in this kind of style. Or oh, this is also interesting. It's not industrial. I think I've played with recording some toys of my kids. Why not? We may try to make it into some sort of a darker, weirder ambient thing. Just make it louder. Give it some reverb as well. Maybe not some, maybe quite a bit. This is awesome. I like it already. I'll use it, and we're gonna make the next batch of impacts like this. So I copy this over, I crossfade this further. And yeah, this is gonna be the second thing. Again, like that. And we're gonna use some other stuff from here to build into each of these impacts. This is noisy, this is good. I can cut it into bits and pieces. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever. And we'll pick each one. And try to make these fades sound good. They don't all have to be, you know, reverbed and delayed and whatnot. Just can be some sort of a abrupt tension and then release. Let's hear how it sounds. Okay, this is good, but this is too fast. I will cut and make each of the hits separate and roughly spread them all over the place. You want some bits of emptiness. I will talk about the silence in a different method, but this kind of, like, I'm talking about the methods as examples, but usually when making some sort of a track or ambience or atmospheric thing, you combine all of them to a degree. Like one could be dominant, but then the rest of them complement each other. And in this case, this is a bit of a play between notes and silence makes the emphasis of the next hit bigger. I'll explain it later. But yeah. I want a bit more of these industrial hits. What was the original sample? I don't remember. I'll use this guy. And see, yeah, there was some stuff in here. And there was some stuff in there. For instance, we can get this one, I think. Make it quieter, like this. And yeah, I thought the like intro of this, it's noisy, it's good. It could serve as an intro to the whole track actually. Can gradually, slowly introduce it. You know what? We can shift that whole thing a little bit. So this hit becomes the actual initial impact of the track. That should sound good, I think. But then we want to cut out this guy a little bit. Kind of like so. I'll do it even differently. Slightly. I'll increase the loudness of this thing so that the impact is actually, like, properly felt. And decrease it here. We will have this still continuing, so it should even out. Okay, that is too loud. I'm gonna drop the loudness here quite a bit. And more of this stuff. Kind of, again, slowly introducing it into the whole arrangement to lead into the hit, into the impact. Okay, there should be another slight build-up, kind of similar to this, but maybe somewhere from the later part. Okay, I like this one. So most of the workflow is basically fishing for interesting parts inside the already existing recording. And yeah, this is what I usually do whenever I'm trying to make it sound like the sample-based or design stuff around the field recordings. Yeah, let's quickly give it a few more probably hits and wrap this method up because it's already taking some time. But generally, I think you're getting the idea. And you see, we were using like 1, 2, 3, 4 samples at most, and there is still, I've dropped a bunch of these just in case. We can continue with the arrangement, progression, and development based on those samples. This will be like the droney one, which continues. We could then switch it out to a different droney one. Like, we could low pass this guy. Let's do that, actually. Let's do this exact thing, just to show you how it might evolve. Do we have a 274? No, we don't. So let's use this thing. Yep. And that could be the second kind of continuation of that. Slower, less pronounced, but still pretty physical and pretty impactful. Okay, I'll just copy this guy again, drop it here. I'm too lazy to fiddle with the other things right now. You probably will get the whole concept. Something like that. Yeah, we've got a good, I don't know, minute, maybe a little less. And that sounds pretty dope. I like it. I'll save it for future. Maybe I'll finish it into a different kind of demo, more worked on. Yeah, that was another method. Method number 4. Textures, noises, and all that kind of stuff. I've quickly slapped together 2 different kinds of noises at the moment. I thought maybe I'll probably should just show how I do that. I generate them in SynthPlant. This is one of the cases where it's like faster and easier for me. But it's not limited to SynthPlant. It could be any synthesizer with, I don't know, randomization capabilities. It could be something modular. It could be something actually noise-based or, I don't know, sample-based or any sort of library, effects library even that you have. But yeah, the idea behind this method is that you have these bits and pieces of noise that are distinct from one another, not just, you know, clashing and flowing together, but rather you use them to emphasize differences in the track. So let's say I have this one, very high noise. And this, the second one is like a little bit lower, but also there is a stereo difference. This one is quite mono with very little stereo information. Like there is, but it's not super obvious. This one is instead has a pretty big reverb on top of it. Also, I want to make quickly yet another one. Let's clone the pattern noise 3. Let's cut this guy, put it here. put it somewhere lower in the octaves. And how I do that, I just drop any sort of... This should be good. Resampled stuff. I pick any bit of it that sounds decent to me. Sounds fairly decent, it's pretty low. Basically, Synthplant does the magic now. Okay, I'll stop at this one. It's not super noisy, so I will actually probably just, first of all, increase the saturation so that it is louder. Not loud enough. Okay, a little better. Where was the... Here. Here we have release volume. Yep. Let's go with the volume. Okay, now let's make it even more noisy, because the reverb is quite low in here. And this is gonna counteract the mid noise. Yep, that's pretty good. What I want to do, I usually want to fill out the spectrum first of all, because I don't know how about you, I like to listen to music that has lots of information in it, that is not very minimal, sometimes minimal, but not always, and never like too minimal. So I try to fill out the main spectre parts, which is low end, mids, highs to a degree. Sometimes I do it too much, but in this case we have only 3 layers right now, and each of them will interact. The textural approach that I want to show here is not only noise-based. Noise is a main point here to emphasize the structure. So that means we should still get something more tonal. It could be, you know, some sort of melody, it could be some sort of sample, it could be something else, not just the noise itself. We use noise more to texturize the existing melodies. Let me try and, I don't know, we have... Okay, let's go with anything. I don't know. What is... This guy's good. We'll use it. It is very loud, so I'm gonna decrease the loudness at the moment here, and probably master volume too. This is better. There is also... There should be a filter somewhere. Pulse filter. Yeah, there it is. I will decrease the frequency. Okay, by decreasing the frequency, we allow for more information, for more space and headroom for the noises to work. So let's say we have this part. And let's change the note to something. Oh, no, not this note. This one. This is a long one, so we're gonna shorten it. And here. It's gonna be a small progression of sorts, and we will use 3 different noises, and changing each note will make it feel slightly different. Same applies to parts of the track. Okay, we're repeating the noise number 2. I want the noise number 3 to be here. No, no, no. And this noise will, yeah, this just should synchronize pretty good. And the changes in the texture should also be emphasized by something. Usually it's either a different noise or sort of a build-up. Just to the fastest thing I usually do is use any percussive sound, hi-hats, usually. So drums, hi-hats. No, that's not hi-hats. This. Good. It's very loud, very noisy. We reverse it. We stretch it out like, not like that, but rather like this. And it's gonna serve as a sort of a build-up. Usually, again, some reverb just to make it fit a little better and probably, sorry, decreasing the volume here. Okay, I think it should suit here a bit more. So we'll find something slightly less oppressive on the ears. All are pretty loud, damn it. Wow. Okay, let's use kick drum. That should be more interesting. Again, reverse, stretch. I likely don't need the highest part of it. So we kind of can leave it this way. Okay. And this should be pretty decent. And maybe some sort of impact, just as in previous methods. It kind of makes the contrast a bit more obvious between different noises and textures. Maybe this one. Again, low passing, just to not overly, just to not make it the central point of the thing. Let's see how it works. Okay, should be louder. And then another impact should be somewhere here again. And probably using yet another different kind of... Let's use noise this time. I like my radio noise, for instance, here. Should be good. I'll use just a small portion of it, and again, stretching it out. Not like that, my god. Like this. Yeah, so it sounds quite unusual, not as a radio, honestly. But we will make it slowly crawl its way up in terms of loudness. Should be good. Also, again, this guy. The noise is very subtle. Maybe let's rework it. We have some other ones. Nah, let's do it a different way. Nope. Okay, let it generate something like that. This should be pretty good. So let's stop that. Let's use this guy. It should be lower. I mean, maybe even much lower. That's all right. Filtering out the high end a little bit might be a good idea. Filter type, then in that case, no, I mean... Okay. Yeah, something like that. Let's hear it. Oh, and then sometimes you don't have to have noise at all. And in this case, for the last note, I'd probably drop it. Once again. Nice, I like it. We got different notes emphasized differently. We could do exactly the same thing, but for larger portions of the track. And yeah, assumed you already have some sort of a structure, it would add even more contrast and even more energy difference, usually capturing more attention from the listener and like making him or her want to know what's going to be further after that. And so, the usual build-ups, I wouldn't say drops in ambient, but releases, so to speak. That sort of step thing. Yep, that's the method number 4, I think. And we'll get to the silence method in a moment. Okay, let's try to make it quick. While I was preparing the demo for the last method, I felt kind of like meditative, I don't know, sedated, whatever. This is because the method is actively relying on the calm parts being the main focus point of the sound here. Just an example. I will explain in detail each of the things because I couldn't do it properly on the go while I was recording, so I prepared it. Yeah, it should be slightly different because I've overly closed the filter here. Okay, that's more like it. So as you can see, the idea is that actual sound is scarce and emptiness is the main point here, but we never quite have only emptiness, only silence. all the silent parts have sort of fillers, some very small, barely noticeable textures. In this case is this repeating loop. In this case, the second, like, I don't know, part of it, let's call it response, is this guy. If you're not on headphones, you might not hear it. It's a very low sub, but it has a little bit of clickiness to it. It also repeats. And yeah, there's never actually quite silence because we also use reverbs heavily and some reversed impacts, noises, transitions, and stuff like that. So it feeds into the idea that we previously discussed, which is textures and changes between the parts. What it's all about, it's about making each sound interesting enough, but also leaving the space for the silence, which is not like the full silence, but it actually contrasts heavily with the scarcity of the melodic parts. This is mostly the same note everything. So this is the initial sound. And it repeats for the long time because of the fact that we have feedback. In this case, it's Rift Feedback Lite, which is a freebie. I'm not sure it's still free. It was free for quite a while. You could grab it. There's also Orbitron. It's not a freebie, but it's a kind of space effect, space modulation effect. Without these, this is a basic and plain kind of hardware sound. I've added those to make it more interesting. Orbitron is not necessary. You could use chorus, phaser, anything you have in your stock. That's good enough. The second one is Arminator, which is this part. Has a lot of reverb to it. Has a delay. You know, the usual stuff. Then it feeds into this reversed kick, reversed impact. So it's kind of like a build-up noise. Just reversed impact hit. And then the impact actually occurs. And it collides and coincides with 3 other layers. They feed into one another, they are layered pretty cool together, they sound good. Maybe a little bit overly loud compared to the previous silence that was there, but it works. And then again, repeating loop instead of the total silence, because like total silence, it just doesn't sound very good, so we have to fill it with something interesting. Then again, the same repetition of this guy, but you see the like large vast spaces that we are leaving in between the notes or things that actually happen here, and that what creates this tension and release. It's kind of call and response as well. These are the concepts that I like a lot in the music. I don't always use them, but they help to build the logical structure of the track quite a bit. And they fit very well into this method, actually. Because like initial note is like a call, and we respond to it with the second note from a different synthesizer. And again, this whole texture or noise is a call, and this subby texture is a response to that texture. So, you know, kind of logically builds the kind of, these are building blocks, if I may say so. It's like a Lego. You get one Lego, you get second Lego, and in this case, yeah, it's FL Studio based on patterns. Someone could treat it as sort of a Lego already, but I'm using the audio files and samples as well, just to help glue everything a little bit more. Not much done on the sounds themselves. This is this is how the thing sounds currently. I've cut the shorter loop and made it more equal in the overall loudness level and repeat it over and over. I've done same with the sub thing. The impact set's fine. These are 3 notes that harmonize with the root note of the initial. I can't call it a melody. It's a stab. Let's call it a stab. Yeah, they harmonize pretty decently. It's some minor tonality chord, whatever. I'm not good at music theory. This is probably the most overused sound that I have. It's a free synthesizer. It's called Arminator. It's very good. I'll leave the links as well. But I think it's only 32-bit, if I'm not mistaken. So probably not everyone will be able to run it. But yeah, it's good. You add some reverb to it and it sounds amazing. Then the rest of it is pretty simple, repeating a bit more stuff. Here is the same response, but it also has these pads. A little bit of a chord development. And, we repeat it a few times and we have already a minute of something happening. To some it may seem boring, but I personally enjoy this kind of approach a lot. It gives me that actually ambient, meditative feel quite a bit. So yeah, that's yet another thing that I'm using. That's yet another way I'm approaching the compositions in ambient music. Some bonus tips, if I may, as well. Use MIDI generators if you're not very good with music theory or don't know the chord progressions that you personally enjoy. It is fine to have it. It is okay. It's a tool. It will help you to find something that sounds good to you. Try to combine techniques that you saw today and try to probably find your own ones, because there are lots of ways of generating the sounds and arranging the compositions. It's okay to fail. We all learn this way. Without failure, we wouldn't progress. So try to keep the process of learning fun, even if it's like a total failure. Still try to make something that you enjoyed. Everything has a rhythm or groove. We just don't notice it. There's all sorts of sounds that have innate rhythm. And if you find the part that sticks to you, repeat it over and over, it becomes something that you can, I don't know, not dance to really, but at least something that you can memorize and that will grab your attention. Minimal contrast, even like the smallest kind, can work miracles into your arrangement. Changes and development in energy, back to call and response. This is what keeps the listener hooked. Like, listener is you while you're creating as well. And if you're hooked to what you're doing, you continue doing that. There are no perfect sounds. Most of the sounds are not very good in general, so you have to be picky about what kind of sounds you're using. Sound selection is very important. But most sounds can be changed or adjusted to be good enough so that they work. There are no rules, people say. If something sounds good to you, then it's good. It is true, but still there are some guidelines that you should try to find out or to understand in order to actually make something that you intend to do. Without the guidelines or rules fully, yeah, things can get messy and you don't really always go towards your goal. And that's fine. Sometimes you just have to have fun. But still understand the guidelines and at least sometimes try to go where they lead you. The last but not the least, don't make low effort stuff. if you do, at least give it some thought. At least try to organize it and make it sound interesting. Low effort stuff is what I mean by just like, slap together any kind of sounds, drop a reverb on master channel, and call it ambient. In most cases, it won't be very pleasant to listen to. It won't be very interesting to listen to. So yeah, just take your time to think about how you want to approach composition. Take your time to analyze the things that work, even if the actual sound design and arrangement effort is not that big. The process of analysis, the process of thinking, you putting your intentions into how the track should sound like, that will result in a better overall sound. Yep, that's about it. That's what I've got so far. Hope it was helpful, hope it was interesting, and maybe there are some other things that I haven't mentioned that you want to hear about. Let me know in the comments below. Stay cool, have fun. Cheers, bye.